Good evening. Hope you can all hear okay. Anyone that's here, give me a little thumbs up or a hello in the chat. As you can see, sofa chats from a different sofa. I have returned from London back to. Hi Denise, I've returned from London back in Glasgow and just at my mum's for a few weeks before I head back to Italy again. So, hi Claire, good to have you here. So yeah, a change of sofa, but the dynamic will still be the same. I'll just give it a minute or two just for anyone else that wants to join. And then we will kick off with chapter 3. And you know, there was something I was just thinking about tonight. And looking at, oh, something's obviously on making a noise. Let's get rid of that. Let's get back here. So I was thinking about, just as I was looking at the chapters, and the thing that kind of was in my mind was, remember at the beginning, for anyone that was here for the very first one, you might remember I spoke about how the book's in like 3 sections, although it's got all the individual chapters, it's 3 sections. So you've got release, reset, and rise. And release is still in this chapter 3 still sits under release. And the way that it's like my business model, and that's how it was built. Release is the part of going back over the bits that were the past, looking back to join the dots, whether it was childhood, whether it was old stories and narratives that you've built up over the years, old beliefs, old ways of living. And I was just conscious of that as I'm looking at this again, because this chapter tonight is the breakdown when it all hit at once. And I don't know what it was. I just looked at it and thought, oh God, it's such a powerful chapter, and it's quite a vulnerable one for me to share, to be honest. I think my whole book is, to be honest, but this probably one in particular. And I just became aware of reminding myself, but yes, by the end of chapter 5, we will be in reset. So there's still a lot of challenge in the reset phase, but once it made me think about life and all of our challenges and things that we think, oh God, are we ever going to get out of where we are? Well, this is kind of that proof there that, you know, that first 5 chapters are all that release phase. That doesn't mean I still don't release things from the past or rework things, you know, reframe things, do healing work. I don't mean that. I just mean when you've actually done that sort of core piece of reflecting and going back and joining the dots, we can release that initial part, and then we go into a reset phase and we start to build on it, and we start to come back to ourselves, and we start to feel at peace and grounded and secure and safe within ourselves. And then that leads us to the rise, because then we can see what's in front, we can see what's possible. And anyway, I don't know why, I'm just rambling for a few minutes while we're waiting to get started, but it was just when I saw it and I thought, oh God, are we still in the thick of it here? Yes, even after all these weeks on sofa chats, there's so much content to expand and explore and share and get insight from you guys that yes, we have only reached chapter 3. So for those that have been on the journey, fabulous. For those that want to comment, that don't know the drill, reminder at the top, I've pinned it. It's not therapy, it's not coaching, and it's not a workshop. It's me reading passages from my book, Uncertainty is Your Superpower. And I would then open up the chat to reflections, comments, questions, anything that you want to share, any insight or how it mirrors parts of perhaps your own life. Not the story, but the emotions that sit behind it, the journey, the lessons. And if you do want to chat, you must be subscribed to my main channel. So if you think you might want to leave a comment in this live chat, then remember you need to be subscribed and it will connect you almost straight away. So without further ado, welcome to everyone that's here. Let's just move straight on and we'll just jump in. So chapter 3, the breakdown, when it all hit at once. Oh, I'll take a wee shudder for this one because it's a deep one. There's no glamour in a breakdown, no tidy moment you can point to and say, that's when everything changed. It creeps in like damp, quiet at first, and then everywhere. But when it hit me, it hit all at once. Hard, loud, and humiliating. I was 29. I was living back at my mum's after selling my flat. I'd handed back the BMW, I'd been made redundant, and was still pretending everything was fine. I'd been trying to keep the party going, but the music had already stopped. I couldn't hear it over the noise in my head. The day it cracked, I remember it vividly. Everyone was still having fun, laughing, drinking, going through the motions like we always did, but I couldn't stop crying. I just crumbled. There was no dramatic scene, just this quiet collapse that felt like it had been years in the making. I told my mum everything, and I mean everything. The truth came out in a flood, and I couldn't hold it back anymore. It was the worst feeling I've ever had. I felt like I'd fallen off a pedestal, not one someone else had put me on, one I'd built for myself out of image and ego and steeped in perfectionism. And the fall was long and brutal. Self loathing sets in quickly and deeply. I'd hit rock bottom and I knew it. The shame and the guilt crippled me, and that would stay with me for almost a decade. And yet, to my own surprise, I was still going out, I was still drinking, still filling in the silence with anything loud enough to drown my thoughts. But it wasn't working anymore. The highs were so high, surrounded by the people, the buzz of the night, the energy of numbing. And for a while, they fooled me into thinking I was okay. But when the effects wore off, geez, oh, the crash was unbearable. The lows weren't just sad, they were horrendous, like having your soul ripped out. My go to way of laughing it off with my friends was saying to people I was away to give myself 40 lashes on the back, my metaphorical self punishment for my treacherous behaviour. It became a standing joke, if only. I felt like it felt like a bottomless pit in my chest that no one else could see. And that actually made it worse. People surrounded me, but I felt lonelier than ever. It's actually wild to think about now how many of us are out there smiling, drinking, taking substances, joking, and just dying a little bit inside. Looking back, I can see what I couldn't see then. I was completely unfulfilled. I had no idea who I was, what I wanted, or what it meant to be happy. If I'd understood that earlier, if I'd recognised the signs and chosen a different path, maybe I would have broken the cycle earlier. But I didn't. And I've had to come to terms with that over the years. Regret doesn't serve you well, it only eats you up and keeps you stuck for longer. I lost those years in some way, but they were also part of the path. I kept trying to get myself back on track over and over again. That's the part people don't always see. It wasn't like I didn't care or I wasn't trying. I didn't know how to stop the train that I was on. And if I'm sincere, I don't think I would have listened anyway. Not at that age. You'd have needed to catch me before my mid 20s, before the ego kicked in and the emotional walls went sky high. Once I was in my late 20s, I was already running, already neck deep in a version of life I couldn't see beyond. My ego was calling the shots, and any advice or support that didn't feed it, rejected. So I carried on, functioning on the surface, falling apart underneath. It's funny what we remember from those years. Some of it's a blur, messy nights, hungover mornings, jobs that came and went. But some things stick to me like splinters. That quiet after the crying stopped, the shame of sitting in my mum's living room, the day after I outpoured the truth and self deprecation, my head down, calling myself all the names under the sun. And just to be clear, she never made me feel bad. I did that all by myself. The constant loop in my head that told me I was a failure, a complete loser, and that I'd wasted my life and I'd never get out the mess that I was in. But underneath all that noise, something had started happening, even if I hadn't fully realised. An awareness that when you hit rock bottom, you know the only way is up. The significant changes took years, but that day at 29 years old, I was crying while everyone else wanted to continue the party. That was the start, the first crack in the old life. That's when I knew my mum was right. She told me to buy a house and not squander all the money I'd made from the sale of my flat. Thanks, Mum. We didn't know that house would become the gateway to my future dreams. However, to get that house, I needed a secure job, and I found one at a bank. Some structure and safety with good prospects for promotions and growth. And I was over the moon. Don't get me wrong, that wasn't the transformation moment, if only. That was only another survival moment, a reboot. And I looked like I was back on track, but inside I was still running. The truth that would take almost another decade before the real shift happened, before I had the courage to stop running and turn around and face myself finally. But here's the part I hold on to now. I didn't give up, I kept trying. I survived the dark long enough to eventually find the light. And I'll never forget what it took to get there. What came after wasn't just healing, it was almost 10 years of circling, trying, and failing to get free from my old self and free from my shadow. Those years weren't all bad. I did have some fun, but when the bad outweighs the good, you know you've got serious action to take. And that whisper, sometimes breaking, isn't the end, it's the beginning. And what feels like falling apart is often the moment that your soul starts fighting to be free. Anyone that was on last week, please tell me, did I just repeat myself there? This is the joy of being live. Did I just repeat last week's chapter? Because I'm just thinking, I'm so familiar with my book now, guys, that I've even read my notes and I'm thinking, wait a minute, have I just read this book like 1,000 times, or have I just repeated the chapter from last week? Denise, Claire, come on, keep me in the loop here. Help a girl out. So I didn't repeat. Amen to that. New chapter. Oh, Lindsay, thank you. I've read my own book that many times, guys, because obviously of the so many iterations of it that sometimes I can't tell if it's new information or maybe it's just that I'm nearly knocking on 50 in a couple of months and I'm having a senile moment. Who knows? Anyway, now that we know it's not a repeat, let's take a breath. I'll read out the reflection again in the whisper. Sometimes breaking isn't the end, it's the beginning. And what feels like falling apart is often the moment your soul starts fighting to be free. So I'll open that to conversation. Anyone that wants to reflect anything from themselves. In fact, the social media, just while anyone comments, if you feel like commenting, share your own stuff, share a reflection, an insight, a thought, or, whatever you want. One thing I'll share that I put out in social media was coping mechanisms work to a point. So one day the coping mechanisms stop working, and when they stop working, then you're left with options. So you can either keep going and keep going down the spiral until there is nowhere else to go, and it's a complete bottomless pit of victimhood mentality, depression, other mental health, or just a life that you're just miserable in. Or you come to that realization and you decide that you're going to face yourself. And actually, that's the scariest part, because that I was talking about in that chapter, facing myself by saying it out loud. I said it to my mum. I had no way of coming back from that. It was the admitting it out loud. It was the admitting it to myself, and it was the fear of saying out loud how much I didn't like myself for my behaviour. And I just want to be clear here. I wasn't doing bad things particularly. It was what I was doing to myself that wasn't good. And it was my living out of alignment with the life I knew I was meant for, that I couldn't see a pathway to that. So I was in self destruct. So those coping mechanisms that were blocking out all of the trauma, the old things from childhood, the behaviours, all of that I was blocking out, and those coping mechanisms, they just stopped working because they were destroying my potential, my mental health, my physical health. And there perhaps might be moments in your own life where you've had a set of coping mechanisms and tools, and you think, do you know, why is this all of a sudden not working? How is it I've got to a point where I think I can't keep going anymore? Am I going to burn out? What's going to happen? I'm scared to say it out loud because, it's like if I say out loud that I'm not doing great, or I'm not coping, or I'm got a problem with substances, or I'm feeling resentful towards people because I don't know how to say no, whatever it is, it's like that feeling of God, if I open the door on this and the dams burst, will I be able to cope with what's underneath? Well, I want to reassure you. I hope my book gives you some guidance as well, and just to realize that things can be different. Even when you think it's the darkest, it can be different, especially if you have a desire within you for change and you're open to be guided along that journey, then it is possible. I've had the darkness. I mean, you'll read it in my book with the way I've felt about myself. And I know that there's plenty of people here tonight that'll have experienced varying capacities of their own version of a darkness and a breaking point. So let me just jump into the comments. So Claire, the point I fell apart was also the point I knew I needed to either do something or I would sink. That's when you started. Oh, I don't know why every time I see when people write things like that, I just always get such a wee tingle in my body, because what a gift for me. And anybody that's worked with me knows this. I say this to you all the time. When their client is grateful to me and all, Debbie, couldn't have done it without you and all these things. And I think, do you know what? The gift for me is watching you change your life. So as much as I'm facilitating things for people on the journey, the person themselves, Claire, for example, you took the action, because I can't do that for you. I can do all the other things around it to support you, encourage you, cheerlead you, do all the different types of deep rewiring and subconscious healing, etc. But you showed up for yourself, and that's why you were able to make the changes. Lindsay, me admitting out loud and to yourself and to me was the first step on the journey to change. There is exactly it again, isn't it? And helped others close to me open up to. Oh wow, I love that. That's such an interesting point, Lindsay, because again, for anyone that's worked with me, you'll hear me rabbling on about this all the time. It's that feeling of the ripple effect. So you start some work on yourself, right? On one area. So there's two ways of seeing the ripple effect. So one is internally in you. You start to work on one part, and then the ripple effect is that it impacts your entire life. And that then extends out to the people in your life. And because you're showing up differently, you show up to them differently, and then they will experience you differently, which means then that you have a different experience and receipt of them. Often that's what ends up mending relationships, strengthening relationships. it has you having the courage to speak up about your needs and your desires and your hurts and things that you in the past might have brushed under the carpet and has led to resentment over years of your life. Having that opportunity to have the confidence and trust yourself that you matter, you are enough, and you want to build and strengthen the relationships around you. Doing that inner work on you is one of the biggest game changers, because I always say to people when they arrive and people are frustrating them all round about them, and I think, yep, that's probably true. But you work with you first. You start from the inside with you, and then what you project out will have a direct impact on those around you. You might not get a change in others immediately. That's not the goal. You show up differently for you. You feel better within you. And then through time, you will find that other people start to respond to you differently. Some take longer than others to see the changes in you and embody that. But overall, we have an opportunity to uh, really enhance our experiences, our connections, our relationships with other people by doing that work on ourselves. Claire, a lot of people have said that I project differently since working with you, and some aren't people. I don't know. Oh God, Claire, I just love you. Honestly, you're just such an advocate for my work. And just for the record here, people, I'm not paying Claire behind the scenes here, although it might look like that because she's such an advocate. But actually, the reason being is because the experience was so powerful for you and how you've now began to live your life. And when you get that, actually, let me tell you a wee story, right? There's a woman that I worked with years and years ago, and I always remembered this story because she made me chuckle with it. And she said to me after working in quite a few sessions, right? So we've been in a wee program for a while, and she says, Debbie, the strangest thing started to happen. I was walking down my street, and my neighbour said hello, and I was like, okay. She says, then I went to the supermarket, and she she says then this stranger was just chatting at the checkout, and then someone else outside was chatting with their dog, and she went, I realized what actually was happening. She says, clearly I'd been walking about with a face like a bag of spanners for however long. She went, that people didn't actually feel that they could connect with me. She went, and now that I'm walking about with this, as Claire's talking about, you project out that different energy. She became open, inviting, and she was magnetizing people towards her. And it was just simple things like conversation, simple things like making light conversation with a neighbor or someone in a supermarket, because we're all capable of marching around the place with a face on us, especially when we've got stuff going on for us. But then we wonder why, when like, I'll say my sisters, they're not on this sofa chats, they should join it sometime. Sometimes they'll say to me things like, God, Debbie, you'd fall in the Clyde and come up with a salmon. And I'm like, actually, no, that's not the case. I don't have this crazy luck. I don't have people falling over themselves easily to do things for me, but it looks like that to them because people are very open to supporting me or to doing nice things, or someone out of the blue will do a nice favor for me, and they look in and think, God, that's that. How's that? You'd fall in the Clyde and come up with a salmon. I'm like, no, that's years of inner work. That's now an inner glow that's projected out. My energy comes out. People are receptive to it. And sure, my life runs a little bit smoother because of that. People are nice to me. I do get nice things, compliments, people wanting to support me, but in the same way, I do that outwardly. So it's a mutual exchange. It's not all one-sided, but it does start with me in here. So that paragraph passage that I read from my book tonight, guys, actually that took a wee bit out of me tonight to do it. Not in a bad way, just going back over all of that. It isn't even triggering, that's not the right word. It's a reminder of one, you can overcome anything. Like anything that you are struggling with, ask yourself some simple questions like, is this really happening to me? Is it what I think it is? Is this am I as trapped as I think I am? Am I actually that trapped? Or am I allowing myself by not empowering myself to act, by not accepting that I have agency over my own life? I can make decisions for me. Am I being passive and allowing life to just float on by because I'm not prepared to step forward and advocate for what it is that's important to me? So that whole chapter was about the fall, the ultimate shame for me, the falling off the pedestal that I'd created. But it was also the first crack. I can see that. So at the time, it felt so consuming that I thought, oh God, how am I ever coming out of this? And it was slow because I didn't know people like me 10, 20, whatever years ago. I'm just doing all that inner work on my own, searching out to different pockets of support. So it's not like I had someone like myself jollying me along. It was all very much self done, which is probably why it took so long. But then again, I think that's why I'm so passionate about the kind of work that I do and why I want to make lots of these things accessible, like sofa chats, my book, etc., making things available in a way that can enlighten even one little golden nugget from the book, one statement that I say, one bit of wisdom. Because do you know how many people will hang out with me for a day, half a day, or whatever? And they always leave saying things like, God, Debbie, I feel that I could conquer the world after spending a day with you, or I feel when I leave you, I just feel like I can do anything. And I think, yeah, how can I get more of that from what I do out into the world? And that's another reason why the book came about, and also sofa chats, because I can be here in that energy and I can be here to support people. And it's just like I'm sitting on the sofa with you, and you get that vibe. Oh, I hope you get that energy through this method. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at. That's the chapter for tonight. Is anyone got any other questions? Anything they want to ask me? I'll be here in Glasgow for what have I got? 3 and a bit weeks before I head back to Italy. So come, I think it's the 20th of March that I go. So from the 20th of March, I'll be doing my sofa chats from my sofa in my flat that I'll be renting in Italy. Um, Denise, you are so right. And you've said that to me. You've actually said to me, oh, I've said to people, oh, everybody needs a Debbie. And you're right, like a little Debbie in your pocket. Well, you can get the vibes from here on the lives, and you can always hear my voice in this because actually, when I was writing the book, I did so many iterations of it because it's easy to make it sound. It's easy to get caught up in thinking this is a book and it should read like a professional book. And then the more you read it, you go, no, wait a minute. Sorry, Leanne, I'll need to get more clarity on what you're saying. Add on to that, what do you mean? Um, so yeah, so when I wrote the book and all the iterations I did on it, one of the most important things for me was to sound like me, because I used to hate the sound of my voice. I can't tell you, like when I used to work in the mortgage department in the bank and I had to listen back to my own calls, I wanted to die inside. I hated it. And then becoming into this world, I actually have embraced my accent, how I project my voice, and I get more compliments on it now than I've ever done. I think people just, maybe not so much in Glasgow, but people certainly out of Glasgow love the Scottish accent for whatever reason. And since then, I've really embodied the accent. So for me, going back over the book to make it sound like how you know me, I want you to read it and go, oh yeah, that just sounds like Debbie sitting next to me. That was the goal all along, is every way that I show up so it feels like I'm with you, because life is hard sometimes. and you kind of just need a champion, don't you? Just to say something that will just help pull you up out of your funk. And that's the aim of Sofa Chats and my book. So, Leanne, unless, can you give me a wee bit of insight? So, Denise was saying, I've always said it would be great to carry a little Debbie, yeah, as in we would all love a Debbie in our pocket. Is there someone or something you do to get that same feeling? Are you asking that of me? I'm not quite sure because Denise was talking about how um, when Denise has worked with me as a client and had the profound shifts and changes and outcomes after sessions, through time. Yes. So, oh, is there someone or something you do that you get the same feeling? Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm sorry, I wasn't reading that properly. Right. That is such a good question because I have do you know what I've stopped doing? And I'm not advocating this. I haven't read as many of the self-development books in a while. So I'm probably not looking up to people as much like that anymore. But I did at the beginning. You don't confuse. I never read it right. Sorry, Leanne, that was me. I wasn't reading. Um, I haven't really had as many books. I read academic book like therapy books and hypnotherapy books and coaching books, and so from theoretical stuff, I read stuff like that. But when it comes to who I look up to, one of the people that I actually really look up to is I've built a brilliant relationship with the woman that taught me how to be a hypnotherapist, like 6 and a bit years ago. And over that time, I not only trained as a student, and then I trained her students in her academy. So I taught them, and I've been involved in, like, I go on as a fake client for her training videos. And she messaged me up the other day saying, Debbie, she went, we're watching you with the fake menopause. She went, in one of these training videos, she went, we need to get you back on for an updated version because I quite like going on and doing the filming for her. So actually, she is someone I look up to because she's the queen of pivoting. She's pivoted her business so many times and it's gone through its ups and downs. She's been in business for, I think, for about 15, maybe 16 or more years. So she's certainly someone. My AirPods have just died. Schoolboy error. Didn't charge them. Um, so she is somebody that I very much look up to. And when I need a pep talk, she's one of my main people that I go to. So thanks for asking that question. But if you mean a famous person, I've not been tuning into them in the same way. I think I'm finding my own way, and that's the truth. Because I think it's easy to get caught up in what other people say. Um, and I think it's important for us to always spread out where we are taking our support from and our advice and our ideas and our pep talks from. So, yeah, she's one of them. And I quite like Marissa Peer because she's in the hypnotherapy world. And who else have I been reading a wee bit about lately? Do you know who I've been listening to a lot? And it's a bit off the wall for me because it kind of doesn't align with my style of business. But I've actually been tuning in a wee bit more to Alex Hermosi, only on his shorts. I don't really watch the long form video, but sometimes his shorts will come up and it just captures me in a moment. And he'll say things like, if you've not been at your business for 10 years, don't come to me telling me it's not working yet, because the reality is it takes way longer than you think to succeed. He'll say things like that, or he'll remind me that it's not brains that will make you succeed, it's discipline, it's consistency. It's so, even the smartest person can be outsmarted by someone who's prepared to be consistent in a task, who's prepared to show up, who's prepared to fail millions of times and keep getting up and putting a face on and keeping going. So I quite like Alex Hermosi. Does anybody else watch any of his stuff? I don't know. If you do, but he's self-development, and but he's quite what would be the word? I don't know, it's quite masculine energy, but it still works for me because to have a business, you need to have masculine, you need a masculine energy as well as the feminine. The feminine's very natural in me, especially now that I've done a lot of healing. I can show up my feminine a lot. My business has got a very feminine edge, but to be a successful business owner, there's got to be an element of masculine in there as well because you've got to do the do, you've got to show up. There's the tasks, there's the doing. It can't be all zen and woo woo, or I would never be able to get a business off the ground. So yeah, he's one of the ones that I quite like at the moment. So yeah, that's probably the ones on a personal level. And then I've met a lot of people in my network, and I'm very inspired by other entrepreneurs that I meet in networking environments. And we recently met someone who wrote a book, and we did a book swap. And I recently met several women at a networking opportunity in London. And again, I just had a call with one tonight, and we just vibe together. And you just know these are great people in your community that if you need to lean on somebody, you've got someone there to lean on. I hope that answers it, Leanne. So thanks very much for asking. It's actually a really lovely question to be asked. So I appreciate that. So I think that's us. 25 to. I think we'll wrap it up for tonight. Appreciate all your questions, insights. Claire, thanks for always championing me. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. It just does not go unnoticed. For everyone else that joined, thanks for tuning in. And I will see you same time next week, next chapter. And yeah, we'll see where we go on this journey of sofa chats. And I will see you. I'll still be in Scotland and I'll still be in this sofa. So I'll see you then. Bye for now.